The wind swept across the dry plains of Ardessa, carrying with it the dust of centuries. Sparse green patches clung stubbornly to the red soil, struggling against the harsh sun. Out here, on the edge of the frontier, life was hard. Most settlers had long left for safer colonies, but Elias Corvin stayed. His ranch, modest and sun-bleached, was his home, his responsibility, and, for better or worse, his world. Elias moved slowly among the pens, checking the livestock. His animals were unlike any found on Earth. The hybrid cattle, bred to survive Ardessa's harsh climate, had thick hides that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Their eyes were intelligent and alert, reflecting a world that had forced them to be strong. Elias spoke to them quietly, each call precise, each whistle meaningful. To an outsider, it would have looked strange, but here, communication was survival. The evening sun stretched long shadows across the ground when a faint noise reached Elias's ears. A soft rustle, almost hidden in the wind. He froze. On Ardessa, unexpected sounds often meant trouble: wild animals, rogue drones, or worse, desperate scavengers. But this noise, it was different. Human. From the corner of the ranch, a figure emerged. Maris Vale. She moved carefully, deliberately, her boots kicking up soft puffs of dust. Her eyes, bright and determined, scanned the ranch as if she were both curious and cautious. Elias had seen her before. She was an engineer, new to this sector, and known for her brilliance in water systems and environmental stabilization, but she kept to herself, preferring calculations and machines over people. "Good evening," she said, her voice low, almost afraid it might carry too far in the wind. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Evening. What brings you out here?" Maris hesitated, then stepped closer. Her eyes flicked toward the pens. I need help," she admitted. "I don't want to be alone on this land anymore. I wish someone could stay. Someone who could understand." Elias studied her silently. In the frontier, people didn't come and speak like that. They either needed something practical or wanted to claim your land. Her words, though, carried a weight he couldn't ignore. Something in them was genuine. "I'm a rancher," he said cautiously. "Not much company for anyone. Especially someone like you, used to machines and calculations." Maris smiled faintly. "I don't need fancy talk. I just need someone to help me survive. Someone who knows the land. If you stay, I'll make it worth your time. I'll help with anything you need." Elias scratched his chin. She wasn't asking for money, or land, or promises. She was asking for companionship in a world that made loneliness a necessity. For a moment, he considered saying no. A man like him, alone for years, didn't suddenly take on another person lightly. But something about her made him pause. "I'll help," he said finally. "Tomorrow, we start at dawn." Maris's face brightened, relief washing over her features. "Thank you," she whispered. That night, as the twin moons of Ardessa rose, casting silver light over the ranch, something strange happened. Maris walked to a corner of her property, where the wind blew more fiercely. The red soil there had always seemed untouched, barren, except for a faint metallic glimmer that no settler had noticed before. She knelt, brushing away dust and dirt. Buried beneath was an artifact, smooth and faintly glowing. The metal shimmered under the moonlight, patterned with symbols neither Elias nor Maris could recognize, but it radiated warmth, almost like it could feel emotions. "Elias," she whispered when he came to check on her. "I don't know what this is. It wasn't here yesterday." Elias crouched beside her, eyes wide. Maybe it's some old alien tech," he said cautiously. "The first settlers told stories about devices left by an ancient race. Most thought it was myth." Maris touched the artifact lightly. A pulse of light ran through her fingers, and suddenly, her heart felt lighter, her mind sharper. She looked at Elias and smiled, a small, private smile. I I think it heard me. My wish. I just wanted someone to share this life with. Elias frowned, unsure whether to laugh or be afraid. Wishes don't come true like that, he muttered. Yet even as he said it, the air seemed to hum softly around them, as if the planet itself had paused to listen. The next morning, Elias and Maris began working together. She showed him the improvements she had made to her water condensers and soil stabilizers. He taught her how to manage the hybrid cattle, how to read the land, how to survive Ardessa's harsh winds and scorching days. At first, the work was awkward. They argued about methods, about efficiency, about whose way was better. But soon, the arguments faded into rhythm. They moved together naturally, understanding each other without words. Days turned into weeks. The bond between them grew quietly, almost unnoticed. Elias found himself sharing stories from his past, tales of mistakes and successes, fears and hopes. Maris listened, her presence steady, her advice practical. She didn't judge, she only guided. And in turn, Elias noticed things about her he hadn't expected. Her laughter, rare but genuine, her stubborn determination, her small gestures of care for both the animals and the land. One evening, while the suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deep oranges and purples, Maris spoke again. Do you ever wonder why we're here? On this planet? So far from everything familiar? Elias looked up at the twin moons, thinking, I don't know. Maybe because someone has to be. Someone has to make it livable. And maybe someone has to make it worth living. Maris nodded, a soft smile on her lips. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device from the artifact, still glowing faintly. I think it's trying to help us, to guide us. It understands something about us. And Elias glanced at the artifact. For the first time, he allowed himself to wonder if perhaps some stories were true. If perhaps there were things in the universe beyond explanation, things that could respond to hope, to desire, to simple human need. That night, as they sat by a small fire outside the ranch, Maris whispered into the wind, almost to herself, I need you. Not just for the work, but for everything. Elias looked at her, the words sinking slowly into his heart. I think I understand, he said softly, and for the first time in a long while, the harsh frontier of Ardessa didn't feel so lonely. The morning sun rose over Ardessa, turning the sky into a swirl of orange and pink. Elias woke early, as always, checking on the hybrid cattle before starting the day's work. The animals were restless. Some lowed softly, while others pawed at the red soil, sensing the unusual energy that still lingered from the artifact Maris had found. Maris was already outside, kneeling near the water condensers she had repaired. She hummed softly, adjusting valves and pipes, her movements precise and methodical. When she saw Elias approaching, she waved him over. Good morning, she said, her voice carrying a warmth that made the early chill feel lighter. Morning, Elias replied, scratching the back of his neck. Looks like the herd was up early too. Something feels off today. Maris looked toward the pens, her brow furrowing. I felt it too. Ever since we found the artifact, the land feels alive. Not just the animals, but the plants, the soil, even the wind. Elias nodded slowly. I've been noticing that. Some plants are growing faster than usual, and the grass in the lower fields is almost too green for this season. They moved together, checking every corner of the ranch. At first, the changes seemed minor, almost welcome. Plants growing quickly meant more feed for the cattle, and the soil seemed richer. But then, subtle problems began to appear. Small creatures, long thought extinct on Ardessa, began appearing near the edges of the ranch. Sharp-toothed rodents, glowing insects, even a few wild predators. They were drawn by the artifact's strange energy. Looks like we're not the only ones noticing it, Elias muttered, as he shooed a glowing insect from the water reservoir. Maris wiped her hands on her pants and sighed. We'll have to adjust. I can build small deterrents to keep them out. But if the energy keeps rising, we'll need something stronger. For the next few days, they worked tirelessly. Elias trained Maris in handling the hybrid cattle, teaching her how to read the subtle signs of stress or illness. Maurice taught Elias to improve the irrigation system and stabilize the soil, making it more fertile. They were learning from each other, each skill blending into the other. And yet, the artifact continued to pulse. Faint, but steady. Sometimes, when Maris touched it, a warm glow spread through her hands, calming her mind and making her heart feel lighter. Elias noticed that every time she interacted with it, her confidence seemed to grow, her ideas sharper, and her patience with him deeper. Something about that artifact, Elias said one evening as they sat on the edge of the main field, watching the sun dip below the horizon. It's helping more than we thought. It's like it's encouraging us to work together. Maris smiled softly. Maybe it is. Maybe it wants us to survive here. Maybe it wants us to thrive. Their growing partnership was soon put to the test. One morning, a violent storm swept across the plains. The winds were stronger than usual, whipping dust and debris in every direction. The hybrid cattle panicked, scattering across the fields. Elias and Maris worked frantically, calling to the animals, guiding them back toward the pens. The storm was relentless, tearing through fences and breaking branches from the sparse trees. Yet, despite the danger, Elias and Maris moved together as if they had done this all their lives. Elias herded the cattle with skill, while Maris used her engineering knowledge to rig temporary barriers and protect the livestock. By nightfall, the storm had passed. Exhausted, covered in mud and scratches, they finally sat by a small fire, catching their breath. You were incredible today, Maris said quietly. I didn't think I could keep up with you. Elias shook his head, a tired smile on his face. You kept up just fine. If anything, you saved more than a few of the animals with your quick thinking. For the first time, there was silence between them that felt natural, comfortable. The fire crackled, the wind whispered through the broken trees, and the twin moons rose, bathing the ranch in silver light. Neither spoke, but the bond they had formed over weeks of work and shared danger hung in the air like a tangible thing. The following days brought new challenges. The artifact, still pulsing with faint energy, seemed to attract not just wildlife but other humans. Rival settlers, drawn by rumors of strange power on the land, began appearing near the outskirts of the ranch. Their eyes were greedy, their intentions unclear. But the message was obvious. They wanted the artifact, and they wouldn't leave peacefully. Elias and Maris prepared. They reinforced fences, set traps for the wild predators, and established safe zones for the cattle. They learned to communicate silently, hand signals and glances replacing words. The ranch had become a fortress, and together they became its guardians. Late one evening, Maris approached Elias near the main pen. We can't just defend ourselves forever, she said. We need a plan. We need to understand the artifact better before someone comes to take it by force. Elias nodded. I've noticed it reacts when we're working together. Maybe it's connected to how well we cooperate. If that's true, we can use it to strengthen the ranch and maybe even protect ourselves. Curiosity and determination drove them to investigate further. They spent nights examining the artifact, taking notes, testing its reactions to touch, sound, and movement. They discovered small patterns. When they worked together calmly, the artifact pulsed softly, and plants grew healthier. When tension or fear rose, it dimmed, almost as if disappointed. It's learning from us, Maris whispered one night. It's understanding what we do, what we need, and it wants us to survive. It wants us to thrive. Elias looked at her, a slow realization dawning. Not just the ranch, Maybe it wants us to thrive. Together. Maris blushed faintly but didn't argue. She had begun to feel it too. A strange, gentle pull toward Elias, a sense of safety and connection unlike anything she had known. The first real confrontation came sooner than expected. One afternoon, rival settlers, armed with basic energy rifles and drones, tried to sneak onto the ranch. Elias and Maris were ready. The artifact pulsed strongly, as if sensing danger. The hybrid cattle, guided by Elias, formed defensive formations. While Maris activated energy barriers, she had improvised using the artifact's strange power. The settlers were surprised. Their drones faltered in the unusual energy fields, and their rifles misfired. Elias and Maris, working in perfect sync, managed to drive them away without a single injury. The ranch was safe, for now. After the confrontation, they stood together, breathing heavily, the adrenaline slowly fading. Elias placed a hand on Maris's shoulder. "We make a good team," he said simply. Maris smiled, leaning slightly against him. "The best team." That night, as they cleaned up and repaired damages, Elias thought about how much had changed since Maris had first come to the ranch. He had started the day as a solitary rancher, comfortable in his loneliness. Now, he was part of a partnership, one that challenged him, made him think, and, slowly, made him care. Maris, too, felt the change. She had come seeking help, seeking someone to survive with. What she had found was more than assistance. She had found trust, respect, and perhaps, in time, something deeper. As they finally rested, the artifact glowed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. Neither Elias nor Maris understood its full power yet, but they felt its presence. Reassuring and guiding, it had brought them together, yes, but it was also testing them, teaching them, preparing them for challenges they could not yet imagine. And out here, on the edge of the wild frontier, that was exactly what they needed. The morning on Ardessa was calm, almost deceptively so. The red soil glowed softly under the twin suns, and a gentle breeze whispered across the plains. Elias and Maris had spent the night repairing fences and strengthening the defenses after the attempt by the rival settlers. Both were tired, but determined. Something about the artifact made them feel alert, connected, and even capable of more than they had thought possible. "Do you think it's really alive?" Maris asked, brushing dust off her pants as she watched the cattle graze. Elias shook his head slowly. "Not alive in the way we are. But it reacts. It learns. It feels. Maybe. What we feel." Maris moved closer to the artifact, which was still partially buried in the corner of her land. Its metal surface shimmered faintly, patterned with symbols that neither of them could read. "I want to understand it," she said. "If it can help us protect the ranch, maybe it can teach us more than just survival. Maybe it can show us how to thrive here." Elias crouched beside her, studying the symbols. "I've seen some of these in old colony records," he said. "Legends say they were left by an alien race that tried to guide humans on distant planets. Most people thought it was just stories. But maybe they were real." For days, they experimented carefully. Maris would adjust the soil around the artifact, test how the plants responded. Elias would move livestock near it, observing any changes in their behavior. Slowly, patterns began to emerge. When they worked together calmly, with trust and patience, the artifact pulsed brighter. When tension or fear arose, its glow dimmed. It was as if it responded not just to touch, but to their teamwork, their cooperation. "Look at this," Maris said one evening, pointing to a section of soil near the artifact. Tiny sprouts had grown overnight, stronger and greener than anything they had seen on the ranch. "It's making the land fertile, faster than normal, healthier, almost like it wants us to succeed." Elias nodded. "It's not just the land. The cattle seem calmer, more alert, more intelligent, almost like it's teaching them too." Maris smiled softly. Maybe that's its purpose. Maybe it was made to help people survive. To help people work together. Elias's eyes met hers, and for a moment, the world seemed to shrink to just the two of them and the glowing artifact. He realized that survival was no longer just about food, water, or protection. It was about connection, about trust, about learning to rely on someone else. The following days brought more revelations. While exploring the surrounding land, they discovered faint ruins buried in the red soil, strange walls and carved pillars, etched with symbols like those on the artifact. Maris ran her fingers along the carvings, feeling the energy hum beneath her touch. "These are instructions," she whispered. "Or a record. It's showing us how the artifact works, and maybe why it was created." Elias helped her clear the dirt from one of the larger stones. Suddenly, a holographic projection rose from the carvings. It depicted a race of beings, tall and elegant, moving with purpose across the planets. Streams of light connected them to various devices, including one that looked exactly like their artifact. Symbols floated in the air, translating into simple messages in their language. "Designed to encourage unity," Maris read aloud. "Designed to reward cooperation and mutual care among settlers. Life will flourish when humans work together." Elias frowned. "So, this artifact isn't just for one person. It's for people working together. It's helping us because we're trying." Maris nodded. "And not just helping us, it's teaching us, showing us how to live here. How to grow crops, protect the land, even manage the animals better than we could alone." That evening, they sat near the artifact, letting its soft glow wash over them. The bond between them had grown beyond friendship or simple teamwork. They had learned to anticipate each other's movements, to read subtle cues in behavior, and to trust one another completely. "I never thought I'd feel this connected to someone else," Elias admitted quietly. "Not just because of survival, but because of everything. Work, decisions, even thoughts." Maris smiled, her eyes reflecting the light from the artifact. "I feel it too. This place, the land, it's harsh, but with you, it feels like it can be tamed. Like we can make it home." As if in response, the artifact pulsed more brightly. Tiny sprouts emerged around it, reaching toward the sky as if encouraged by its energy. Even the hybrid cattle settled nearby, calm and watchful, but not all changes were gentle. As they explored further, Elias and Maris noticed subtle shifts in the wildlife. Predators became bolder, sometimes approaching the ranch under cover of darkness. Creatures that had been shy and distant now circled the pens, drawn by the artifact's energy. "We can't ignore this," Elias said, tightening his grip on a makeshift staff. "The artifact is helping us, yes, but it's also drawing attention. We need to prepare for more than just animals. Humans might come next." Maris agreed. "We'll need strategies, fences, deterrence, maybe even energy fields using the artifact. We have time, but we need to be smart." The first full trial came one night when the sky was painted with twin moons and a faint aurora of charged particles. Elias and Maris heard faint rustling near the eastern fields. They moved silently toward the sound, careful not to alarm the livestock. From the shadows, a pack of wild predators emerged. Their eyes glowed faintly, unnatural in their intensity. Elias stepped forward, staff in hand, while Maris activated a small device she had rigged to channel the artifact's energy. A soft barrier of light rose, forcing the predators back. Elias guided the cattle away, whispering instructions and moving with precision. Maris adjusted the energy field, keeping it steady and strong. The predators snarled but retreated, unable to cross the barrier. When it was over, they collapsed near the pens, breathing heavily. Elias looked at Maris, his eyes filled with admiration. "We make a good team," he said. Maris laughed softly, exhaustion and relief mingling in her tone. The best. And we've only just begun. The artifact pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat, as if acknowledging their success. It had taught them to work together, to protect the ranch, and to survive the challenges of Ardessa. And yet, both Elias and Maris felt that this was only the beginning. In the days that followed, they studied the artifact more deeply. They discovered that it could manipulate small amounts of energy to encourage growth, repel danger, and stabilize the land. It was not magic, it was advanced technology, designed with a deep understanding of life and survival. Maris was fascinated. "This could change everything," she said. "We can make the ranch thrive. We can restore the land, grow crops, even expand. But we have to do it together. That's what it wants. We have to do it together. We have to do it together." Elias nodded, looking out across the red plains. "Together. And maybe, more than just for survival, maybe we can make this place something remarkable." That night, they sat by the fire, sharing a quiet meal. The twin moons shone down, and the artifact's glow reflected softly across their faces. They spoke little, but the understanding between them had grown deeper. It was no longer just about work or survival, it was about connection, trust, and shared purpose. "I think it likes us," Maris said softly, almost to herself. "I think it really does." Elias smiled, taking her hand gently. "I know it does. And I think I like what it's teaching us. About the land, and about each other." The artifact pulsed one final time that night, sending waves of energy into the surrounding soil. Plants glowed faintly. The cattle slept peacefully. And even the air seemed calmer. Elias and Maris watched, feeling a sense of wonder and hope they had never known before. For the first time, Ardessa didn't feel like a harsh, lonely frontier. It felt like a home, a place of growth, life, and possibility. And together, Elias and Maris realized that survival was not just about strength, it was about understanding, trust, and connection. And in that understanding, they found something far more valuable than safety. They found hope. The sun rose slowly over Ardessa, casting long shadows across the red plains. Elias and Maris were already awake, checking the hybrid cattle and inspecting the land. The artifact, still glowing faintly in its corner, pulsed softly, as if sensing the morning's energy. It had become a quiet partner in their daily life, a guide and protector. And yet its presence reminded them that the frontier was far from safe. "We've been lucky so far," Elias said, running his hand through his hair as he watched the distant horizon. "But I don't think it'll stay quiet forever. Those settlers, they'll come back." Maris nodded. She had been working on improvements to their defenses, using the artifact to enhance barriers and stabilize weak points in the fence lines. "We have to be ready," she said. "We've learned a lot, but this is only the beginning. If they attack, we can't just rely on luck." The days passed with tense preparation. Elias trained the hybrid cattle to respond to specific signals, teaching them to herd themselves or create protective formations. Maris rigged small energy fields around the pens, carefully using the artifact's power to create barriers that were strong enough to keep out wildlife, but not dangerous to the animals. They worked tirelessly, moving together with precision and trust that had grown over weeks of shared effort. Then, one evening, as the twin moons rose high in the sky, the distant hum of engines and the faint flash of lights on the horizon signaled the approach of the rival settlers. Elias and Maris stood side by side, eyes locked on the advancing threat. "They're coming," Elias said, his voice steady despite the tension. "We'll need everything we've learned. Are you ready?" Maris nodded. "We're ready. We've trained, we've prepared, and we've worked together. That's our strength." As the settlers advanced, the artifact pulsed brightly, sending waves of energy across the land. The hybrid cattle moved instinctively into defensive positions, forming lines and flanking positions under Elias's guidance. Maris activated the energy barriers she had prepared, creating zones the settlers' equipment could not penetrate. The first wave of settlers tried to break through with drones and basic energy rifles, but the artifact's energy disrupted their systems. The drones faltered, spinning out of control, and the rifles misfired unpredictably. Elias and Maris moved like shadows among the chaos, guiding the cattle and adjusting the barriers with seamless coordination. Elias whistled sharply, and the cattle responded immediately, cutting off one group of settlers and driving them back toward the edge of the field. Maris activated a secondary energy pulse, temporarily disorienting another group of attackers. The settlers shouted in confusion, unprepared for a ranch defended by a combination of advanced technology, instinctive animals, and strategic human coordination. Through the night, the battle continued. It was not a fight of brute force alone, but of skill, strategy, and adaptability. Elias and Maris moved in perfect synchrony. He anticipated the settlers' moves, directing the cattle to block escape routes, while Maris adjusted the barriers and energy fields to guide the attackers away from the pens. Every action, every decision, was amplified by their growing trust and understanding of each other. At one point, a settler managed to get close to the artifact. Elias reacted immediately, intercepting him before he could touch it. "You'll get nothing here," he said firmly, standing protectively in front of the glowing device. The settler hesitated, glancing at the artifact, then at Elias. Something in Elias's calm, determined gaze, combined with the artifact's quiet power, made him reconsider. Slowly, he backed away, and the rest of the group, seeing their leader retreat, began to falter. By dawn, the settlers had been driven off, leaving only scattered equipment and traces of their presence. Elias and Maris were exhausted, their bodies aching, but they stood together, looking over the ranch. The hybrid cattle grazed calmly, and the land, touched by the artifact's energy, seemed to breathe a little easier. Elias turned to Maris, his face showing both relief and pride. "We did it," he said softly. "Together." Maris smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We make a good team, better than I ever imagined." The aftermath of the attack left the ranch stronger than before. The barriers, reinforced by the artifact, were now more stable, and the cattle had learned to respond even more effectively to Elias's commands. The experience had shown them the value of preparation, coordination, and trust. But beyond the physical defenses, something deeper had changed. Elias and Maris had learned to rely on each other completely. They moved not just with skill, but with intuition, predicting each other's actions and decisions. The artifact, ever present, pulsed gently as if acknowledging their bond. One evening, after repairs were made and the cattle were settled, Elias and Maris sat near the glowing artifact, sharing a quiet meal. The twin moons hung low in the sky, casting silver light across the red plains. "I never thought defending a ranch could feel like this," Maris said softly, her eyes reflecting the artifact's glow. "Like we're learning more than just survival. Like we're learning trust, understanding, and maybe something more." Elias reached out, brushing her hand gently. "I've felt it too. This place, this work, the artifact, it's brought us together in ways I never expected. Not just for survival, but for everything." Maris leaned slightly closer, her expression thoughtful. "We've survived together, yes. But I feel like we're building something. Something bigger than the ranch, bigger than ourselves." Elias nodded, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the sun would rise soon. "We are. And we'll need that because out here, nothing is simple. But together, I think we can handle anything." The artifact pulsed softly between them, as if agreeing. Its energy seemed to flow through the land, calming the hybrid cattle, strengthening the plants, and even influencing the wind. Elias and Maris watched in quiet awe, realizing that this strange device was more than a tool. It was a guide, a teacher, and perhaps even a silent partner in their lives. As night fell, they finally rested, leaning against each other near the glowing artifact. The land was calm, but the memory of the settlers' attack remained. They knew danger could return at any moment. Yet, in that quiet moment, they felt a sense of strength and unity that went beyond the physical. The artifact, it's more than technology, Elias said quietly. It's teaching us about connection, about trust, about us. Maris smiled, her hand finding his. And I think we're learning about each other, about life here, about how to survive and thrive. The twin moons rose higher, bathing the ranch in silver light. The artifact glowed softly, as if satisfied, and the hybrid cattle settled in the fields. The night was calm, but Elias and Maris knew that challenges would continue to come. Still, they were no longer just two individuals trying to survive on a harsh planet. They were a team, a partnership forged in work, trust, and shared purpose. They had faced danger, outsmarted those who sought to take what was theirs, and discovered the true value of connection, not just with each other, but with the land, the creatures, and the mysterious artifact that had brought them together. And as they drifted into sleep, side by side, they knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. The frontier was dangerous. Yes, but with courage, ingenuity, and trust, they could survive anything Ardessa threw at them, because survival was more than strength. It was partnership. It was understanding. It was connection. And Elias and Maris had discovered that, together, they were stronger than they had ever imagined. The sun rose over Ardessa, painting the red plains with streaks of gold and pink. For Elias and Maris, the morning felt different. The air was calmer, the land more vibrant. The hybrid cattle grazed peacefully, and the artifact, still glowing faintly, seemed to hum softly, like it was content. After weeks of struggle, danger, and discovery, the ranch had transformed. It was thriving not just in survival, but in life, growth, and possibility. Elias stepped out of the main barn, adjusting his wide-brimmed hat. He watched Maris kneel near the fields, carefully tending to a new set of crops she had planted. They were hardy, nutrient-rich plants, made stronger by the artifact's influence. She looked up and smiled when she saw him approaching. "Good morning," she said, her voice carrying a calm confidence. "Good morning," Elias replied. "The ranch looks alive, better than I imagined." Maris stood and brushed her hands on her pants. "It's not just the artifact. It's us. Together, we've learned how to manage the land, the animals, even the energy that flows here. And it's working." Elias nodded. He thought back to the day she had first arrived, shy and uncertain, asking only for help. He remembered the wish she had whispered to the wind. Someone to share her life, someone to understand the harsh world around them. Now, that wish had been fulfilled, not just through luck, but through courage, teamwork, and trust. The day was filled with work, as usual. They checked the hybrid cattle, repaired fences, and inspected the water systems Maris had improved. But this time, the work felt lighter. There was a rhythm to it, a harmony. They moved together without instruction, anticipating each other's needs. The ranch, once a harsh and unforgiving place, now seemed to respond to them in kind. In the afternoon, they decided to explore beyond the immediate boundaries of the ranch. The artifact had taught them much, but there were still mysteries about Ardessa waiting to be uncovered. Walking together across the plains, they noticed signs of life returning to areas that had been barren for years. Small animals emerged from hidden burrows, plants grew taller and greener, and even the wind seemed softer, carrying hints of moisture from distant hills. "This is incredible," Maris whispered, kneeling to examine a cluster of flowers glowing faintly in the sunlight. "It's like the land itself is alive, learning with us, growing with us." Elias crouched beside her, examining the same flowers. "It's more than we imagined. This isn't just survival anymore. This is thriving. And we did it together. Their bond, forged through weeks of shared hardship, danger, and discovery, had deepened into something neither of them could ignore. They trusted each other completely. They moved in sync, and slowly, quietly, an understanding grew between them that went beyond work or friendship. That evening, as the twin moons rose over the horizon, casting silver light across the ranch, Elias and Maurice returned to the artifact. It pulsed softly, the glow warming the red soil around it. They knelt beside it, letting its quiet energy wash over them. "I've been thinking," Elias said softly. "About us, about the ranch, about everything we've faced." Maris turned to him, her eyes reflecting the artifact's gentle glow. "And?" she asked. A small smile playing at her lips, Elias reached for her hand. "I don't want this to be just about survival. I want everything we've built together. I want you by my side, not just as a partner in work, but in life, if you'll have me." Marie's eyes widened, and for a moment, silence stretched between them. Then she smiled, a warm, radiant smile that lit up her face. "I thought you'd never ask," she said softly. "Yes, Elias, I want that too." The artifact pulsed more brightly, as if acknowledging their decision. The land around them seemed to shimmer, and the hybrid cattle gathered nearby, calm and observant. It was as if all of Ardessa itself was celebrating the bond that had formed, strengthened, and endured. In the following days, they began preparing for a more permanent commitment. The small colony nearby had heard of the ranch's success and came to witness the thriving land. Settlers who had once doubted the harsh frontier now marveled at the fertile fields, healthy animals, and energy-stabilized systems. But for Elias and Maris, the celebration was quiet, personal, and deeply meaningful. Under the twin moons, they exchanged vows in a simple ceremony. There were no grand halls, no extravagant decorations, just the glowing artifact, the quiet hum of the land, and the few settlers who had come to witness the moment. Elias spoke first, his voice steady, carrying both strength and tenderness. "Maris, from the day you came to this ranch, I have never been the same. You have taught me to see, to feel, to trust. You have faced danger with courage, worked tirelessly with patience, and shown me what it means to thrive. I vow to stand by you, to face all challenges together, and to cherish the life we've built." Maris smiled, her eyes shining. "Elias, you have been my strength, my guide, and my partner. With you, I have learned to see the land, the animals, and even myself in new ways. I vow to work with you, to trust you, and to share in every moment of our life together." The artifact glowed brighter than ever, casting soft, golden light across the red plains. The hybrid cattle moved closer, gentle and attentive. As if to honor the moment, the settlers clapped quietly, respectful of the sacredness of the ceremony. After the vows, Elias and Maurice walked hand in hand across the ranch. The land seemed alive, fertile, and full of potential. Every plant, every stream, every animal seemed to respond to their presence, thriving under the careful stewardship and the quiet guidance of the artifact. As night fell, they sat together outside the main barn, watching the twin moons reflect on the calm plains. The artifact pulsed gently nearby, a constant reminder of the journey they had undertaken, the challenges they had faced, and the bond they had formed. "I never imagined life could be like this," Maris said, leaning her head on Elias's shoulder. "Harsh, yes, but full of hope, full of growth. Together, we've made this place home." Elias wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. "And we will keep building. We'll expand the ranch, care for the land, and protect everything we've worked for. But most of all, we'll do it together." The nights passed peacefully. The artifact continued its gentle pulses. The land flourished, and the hybrid cattle thrived under their care. Elias and Maris had learned not only to survive Ardessa but to master it, to nurture it, and to create a life filled with purpose and connection. In the weeks that followed, they began planning small expansions, new fields, additional livestock pens, and more energy stabilization devices using the artifact. The settlers nearby watched with curiosity and admiration. Many offered help, inspired by the success of Elias and Maris, eager to learn how to survive and thrive in the harsh frontier. Through it all, Elias and Maris remained focused on each other. Their partnership, built through shared struggle, respect, and understanding, became the heart of the ranch. The artifact, mysterious and powerful, continued to guide them, teaching lessons not just in survival, but in cooperation, trust, and connection. One evening, as the twin moons rose and bathed the land in silver light, Elias and Maris stood together at the highest hill on their property. They looked out over the ranch, the thriving fields, the happy cattle, and the quiet settlements beyond. "We've come a long way," Elias said, his voice filled with quiet pride. Maris nodded, squeezing his hand. "Yes, and it's only the beginning. There's so much more we can do here." Together, the artifact pulsed softly at their feet, as if in agreement. The land responded, vibrant and alive. The hybrid cattle grazed peacefully, and even the distant hills seemed brighter, fuller, alive with possibility. Elias and Maris turned to each other, smiling, feeling the quiet strength of their bond. They had faced danger, discovered secrets, and survived challenges that would have broken most people. But through it all, they had found something rare and precious. A connection that could withstand anything, and a life full of hope and purpose. Hand in hand, they walked back toward the ranch, ready to face the future together. Ardessa was no longer a harsh frontier. It was home. A home built on trust, partnership, and love. And as long as they faced it together, there was nothing they could not overcome. The artifact glowed softly behind them, a silent witness to their journey, their growth, and their bond. It had fulfilled its purpose, guiding not just the land, but two human hearts toward a future of possibility, hope, and fulfillment. And under the twin moons of Ardessa, Elias and Maris knew, without question, that their life together had only just begun.